Okay, so good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon.
All right, and what we're going to do today is a little bit of talk about a decision tree. Okay, so I'm going to give some practical cases of where we might use a decision tree, and then later, Vidi will co-host this session with me. He's going to talk about how decision trees work in computer science, about how to get a decision tree to fit a data. So we both promise that the material here will be relevant to your daily life. And let's begin here. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to actually do is, whoops. Okay, I'm going to look for this piece of content that I'm looking for. So back a while ago, yes, here's the paper. So we had a discussion about how to evaluate a good revenue manager. And I think Vidi saw some of this. This is actually good insight for 10D2 as well. Basically, we evaluate a good revenue manager by looking at which profiles you're managing and then looking at how the profile moves in comparison to the overall company profile. So currently, we have kind of a crisis on Jingo Wayana Wayana because those two profiles are dipping far below based on their performance than the other profiles in the company. So that's kind of like how we can see what's going on. But at the same time, I want to actually do this. So I wanted to actually codify the ideas of what the risks are and what the solutions are when we find those risks. So here's the common thing that we see, right? And maybe let me just show you graphically or visually what that could look like. So we have a list of risks on this column here that we developed. Are there any other risks? Well, let me name them off first, and then I'll ask if there's any other risks. I realize why it's dark here, because we have dark mode for...
Yeah. I think your paper
Oh, yeah? How do I...
on the Google Chrome.
Google Chrome?
Yeah, Chrome 10.
Oh, yeah? So how do I change the theme? Preferences? Okay. We're going to change the theme back to light mode so that theme...
Users. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Black and white? Okay. Let's see if that works better. Chrome. I don't know about that. Okay. All right. Okay.
You change it here instead.
Change it here. Oh, yes. On this.
Yeah,
Okay.
wait,
Oh.
Oh, snap!
I think this is for reduce the energy in the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Vita, for that insight. That's very helpful. Okay, so I want to just actually take a look at a few revenue risks first, and then talk about like if we've identified all the key points. I think some of this we've already covered, Vidi, but let's go over tending. So some of the revenue risks are we have unsold nights that are about to expire. So these are last minute nights. We have properties that have a short runway and a long booking window. That's another type of risk. We have the revenue risk of having too much availability. We have the revenue risk of low future month revenue versus the previous month. We have slow booking pace. We have gap nights. We have a booking pace that's too fast. And we have maybe too many advanced bookings. These are all different types of revenue risk. Let's just go out and see. Tendi, in addition to these risks, do you imagine that there's any other risks?
I think
That's pretty much it.
I see.
Okay, let's go to Alvin. Alvin, in addition to the following risks that we've listed here, what other sort of risks do you see occurring for, let's say, revenue?
This is the one that we can control.
Yes, these are the revenue risks that we can control.
Hmm, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right, let's go to Vidi. Vidi, in addition to these risks, are there any other risks that you can foresee or that we can predict on the revenue management?
Not that we have right now.
Okay. All right, so this is about it. All right. This out here. Okay, so then let's go about and try this out. This will be a fun exercise, right? If we have unsold nights about to expire, what's the solution? So this means we have some nights that are about to expire. What should we do?
Discount.
Right. So we can do a last minute discount, right? Okay. What about the other case where we have a short runway and long booking windows? So let's say we only have a few nights left to sell something that normally takes a month. So what do we do about that? To attend.
Uh, I don't get.
Okay. Let's take an example. What is something that typically has a very long booking window for you? Something in Squad 2 that has a really long booking window.
From booking window. For example, like advance.
Yeah. Like somebody would really need to book in advance for it.
Discount.
Whiska. Okay. So Villa Whiska. Let's say, for example, on Villa Whiska, you have a long. Yeah. You have something that has, like, let's say, a long booking window. We don't know exactly how long it would be. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, okay, all right. This is okay. This is clear, right? You still got some time before a date's about to expire. Let's take a look at, I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. Lot 3, maybe? Okay. All right, here's a good case, right? Ooh, we need to apply some revenue management here, Alvin. So we have something that generally takes quite a long time to book. It's a beachfront villa, and I think the median is somewhere around 3 weeks. But we have a very short runway. We have only about 5 days before this thing's about to expire. So what should we do? We also do a last minute discount. Okay. All right. If there's too much availability, what should we do?
The price.
Okay. Discount again. If there's low future revenue versus previous month. Okay, so the condition of that looks like this, right? It looked like kind of the condition for the company from February to January. The February future revenue was far below the January future revenue. So let me illustrate where this might occur. This is fun. This is good stuff. Okay, so we don't have that condition for March, but let's say March, if March was way low, if March was maybe 80,000 and February we started at 141, that would be a bad sign. That would indicate that we're starting the next month at a lower starting point than this month. Let's take a look at each squad, see if there's any squads that are starting a little bit low. So let's go on squad 4. Nope, squad 4 is good. The starting revenue for March now is higher than the starting revenue for February. That's a good sign. Let's take a look at squad 3. Okay, squad 3 might have some concern. The starting revenue is a little bit lower. Let's take a look at squad 2. Squad 2, ooh, maybe some concern too as well. Attending over there, right? So we got a little bit of a gap to fill. And let's take a look at squad 1. Okay, squad 1 looks okay, right? The starting revenue is a little bit higher than the previous month. Okay, so then what should we do if we have a condition, let's say in squad 2, where attendee is right now, where you have the next month revenue being a bit lower than this month revenue?
Usually, I set the price is about the same, not put the high price on the next month because so fill the nights from now first, then things for price on the that month. We need to reduce or because
Okay.
mostly it's like a last minute booking, like 2 days, 3 days booking in the
Okay, so you reduce last minute discount again, yeah? All right, funny. All right, so slow booking pace. If there's a slow booking pace, what do we do? Let's go to Alan. Alan, if the booking pace is really slow, what should we do to get it going again?
Well, general answer is discount. But one thing that we can do is basically maintain the specific dates for the discount. So we don't. It doesn't mean that we need to set a discount for 1 month. We can only take, just like on the previous one, we can only take a discount for, let's say, for 1 week, just to generate a booking pace, a new booking pace.
Okay, all right, fantastic. All right, let's go to gap nights. What do we do if we have gap nights? Discount. Okay. All right. This is funny, huh? If the booking pace is too fast, what should we do?
price high.
Raise the price. Okay. Okay. And if we have too many advanced bookings, if we have too many bookings, or let's say July and August right now, what should we do? Probably the same, right? Raise the price. Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. This is a very rough cut. This is a super rough cut of like a very imprecise decision tree. Okay. So we're just essentially going with, all right, we need to give discounts in these situations. We don't have two things. We can improve this. Let's go with how we can improve this. Vidi, what's something that we can do to make this decision process better?
Well, for me, I think when we're considering a decision tree, we have to kind of like quantify the values on the data.
Yes. Okay. All right. That's a good point. Before we even get to quantify, we need to quantify. Let's go to Alvin. What do you think Vidi means by quantify the decisions, or just quantify the branches? Let's say.
Does it mean kind of, let's say, make a benchmark or enter yes or no?
Okay. Teddy, what do you think we mean by quantify the decisions?
Think about other solution. Let's multiple option for the decision.
Oh no. Okay. All right. That means we create more quantity. Not quite. If I understand it correctly, Vidi, what we mean is we need to say how many unsold nights, how many unsold nights, and how many days before expiration. Right? Does that make sense? So, how many nights are we talking about, and how many days do we have? Because then, based on that, we can probably create a discount, let's say A strategy, a discount B strategy, and maybe a discount C strategy, right? So let's say, for example, you have an A situation. Maybe you have, let's just say, you have more than 5 unsold nights and sold nights. Let's just go. The unsold nights is greater than 5. But does that make sense? Can everyone think that? Okay. And you have, let's say, I don't know, less than days before expiration is less than 3, right? So maybe that's an A situation. Maybe you have a B sold situation. The unsold nights is greater than maybe 10, and your dates before expiration is less than, or I don't know, less than 1. Actually, let's just keep it the same conditions. Otherwise, there's too many things to think about, right? So we just say, okay, this is a little bit more urgent, and maybe the unsold nights is greater than 5, and the dates before expiration is, sorry, maybe this doesn't make any sense now, because let's do it like this, okay? All right. So let's say, for example, you see a condition. You have more than 5 unsold nights up in the calendar, and you have less than 5 days before they start expiring. So let's say you have that here at lot 3. So we have 5 days. Oops, sorry. We have 5 days, more than 5 days, right? We have like about 10 days here, and they're less than 5 days from expiring. So that fulfills condition A, right? That feels like the first condition. And then we set a certain amount of discount, right? And you could say, all right, there's many ways you can apply a discount. You could apply a discount to all nights, or you can apply a discount to partial nights, right? So you could apply a discount, let's say, to every single night that's here. So everything would be sold at the same price. Or you could go with maybe the first 2 nights you give 10%, or maybe 30% discount, and then the next 2 nights you give 20% discount, and the last you give only a 10% discount, because you have different days of urgency. Okay? All right. So does that make sense to everyone? Right? Okay. Is that what you mean by quantify, Vidi?
Yes, because quantifying the data allows us to actually settle in a value where we consider something as a risk or not. Because sometimes when we discuss in RM, we say like, oh, there are a lot of unsold that's about to expire, but then we don't consider the, for example, booking window distribution,
Right.
which might which might not be any risk at all if the booking window distribution is like 1 or 2 days, something like that.
Okay, very good. Vidi's on track here, right? So think about it this way, guys. So what we're sort of trying to do is this. Ultimately, we're trying to manage risk, right? Because if you take a look at what Bukit Vista does overall, you can kind of see the biggest risk in the company is what? Alvin, what do you think the biggest risk in the company is so far?
Unsold night.
Right. So it's unsold nights. See, you see this stuff? All that orange. If we were able to turn that orange blue, we would immediately be a 4 times bigger company. So we'd go from a 3 million company to a 12 million company. Maybe not directly, right? Because we probably have to give more discounts or whatnot. But if we could like quadruple the occupancy, which is totally doable, then we can gain back a lot of value and we can grow the revenue to a tremendous amount. So one of the greatest risks that we're facing every day is occupancy, unsold room nights, right? We don't want to have unsold room nights. So then it's a matter of how do we manage to sell the nights at the highest price possible. Now remember, if you have an unsold room night, how much money do we make from that? Tendi?
If you have unsold night,
Yeah, an unsold night is worth how much?
30 days.
Oh, no. An unsold room night. If we have no guest staying in that room, how much do we get for that?
Zero.
Yes, zero. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to illustrate is what the risk looks like for us, right? So it's kind of like this. If you look at, let's say, a graph of the risk, it would look like if we sold it for a very cheap price. Oh God, how do I? Wait, here we go. Sketch. Okay, I'm gonna do a graph real quick, and hopefully everyone can see it. So I would like to illustrate the idea of this kind of as a risk management perspective. Okay, so I'm using this tool to draw a graph, and I need it to show up, but it's not showing up, and I'm sad. So we're gonna have to. Okay, all right, do this later. Okay, all right, let me try to illustrate what I believe the risk profile to look like, right? And this is why so many of these solutions are a discount. So if we, let's say, sorry for the sort of the weirdness here, just bear with me here. All right, so this is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis, right? So this side is price, okay? And this side is risk, okay? Okay, let's go to Tendi. Tendi, when you have a really low price, do you have much of a risk of selling the room or not? No, right? So you can kind of see, okay, let's use just a marker here. Ding. Okay, so a low price has a very low risk to revenue, right? Because it's probably going to get sold, but not for a lot of profit, right? But it probably will get sold. Alvin, what if we increase the price? What do you think will happen? Will the risk increase or will the risk decrease?
Supposed to increase.
Okay, all right. So it'll probably increase a little bit like that. So we increase the price and we get corresponding risk, okay? And then, Vidi, what happens if we keep on doing this? What do you think the shape of this graph will look like?
Well, I think it depends on the product itself because it can either go exponential or it will go on a plateau depending on the scarcity of the product.
Okay, depends on the scarcity of the product. All right, let's imagine everything is equally scarce, right? Imagine everything is like, all else being equal. What happens, I believe, is this. At some point, the risk goes up, and then it reaches exponential risk, right? It starts becoming like this. Sorry, yeah. At a certain price, you're almost sure not to get a sale anymore, or the risk of not getting a sale just goes up quite a lot because ultimately you get zero now instead of something. So you kind of need to actually think about where the risk balance is. And this is related to discounting. You don't want to play over here on this side because there's not too much profit to be made, but you don't want to also be on this side where you get absolutely zero because that would suffer for revenue. So the whole process of revenue management is kind of understanding this. It's to understand how to minimize the risk. If I can find that paper again, where did it go? The whole process is actually to look here.
Okay, they're freezing, right?
Oh, we just lost everyone. Okay. Are we back? Okay. All right. Cool. The whole process is actually to contain the risk and to measure the risk and create a solution that keeps the same amount of risk at the sweet spot. Does that make sense? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the risk below the part where it starts getting stupid, but in the area as far up here as we can go without crossing over. Does that make sense? Okay, so then basically every corresponding action that we make as a decision here, what to discount, where to discount, what are the factors, that is simply a risk adjustment, right? So that we still have an 80% chance, let's say, of selling the room at that price rather than getting zero for the room, okay? So these are the essential solutions that revenue managers can start thinking about developing, right? And we have many ways. We have partial discounts, we have full discounts and such. And then we need to be able to quantify what that risk looks like based on each condition. Now, if we have a short runway and long booking window, well, it depends, right? How short is the runway? And how long is the booking window? And maybe we also need to look at other things. Well, what's the booking pace look like, right? Right? And maybe what's the, I don't know, we could actually add other factors in there too. But that's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out a number for the risk that we can quantify. That's the thing that you're working on right now, right, Vidi? So we add the conditions that we see. We give that condition a number. Like today, lot 3, for example, might have a 70% risk of being not sold based on the current metrics that we're seeing, based on the booking pace, based on the runway, based on the booking window, right? So then all we're doing is then we're changing the price to improve that risk, right? So let's say instead of having a 70% risk, let's reduce that to maybe a 30% risk, right? And so all we want to do is to change the price so that the risk is now reduced to a more manageable level. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Okay. All right. That's what we hope to do. Okay, Vidi, this is where I cross over to your side. I've taken about half the time. And Vidi will go into the ideas of decision trees. This is part of how we actually think of a decision tree. We're thinking about what is the initial condition and what do we do to respond to that initial condition, right? And the decision branch is based on risk. How do we reduce this risk? And what price do we need to do to adjust the risk? Okay, all right, Vidi, let's turn it over to you. What would you like to share today?
Okay, right. So when we're talking about decision tree, as the name suggests, I think it's already something that we as RM did for the, as far as I remember, I joined the RM guild. So when we have a particular condition with a situation, we decide whether to, let's say, increase or decrease the price. That's the essence of a decision tree because it's based on that particular judgment. But the difference is, as I've suggested previously, when using a decision tree, we have to kind of like quantify or we kind of like group the conditions, or whether to which point we can kind of take it as a yes or no. So what Mr. Jing did just now regarding the unsold nights, it's actually one part of decision tree called classification, right? So there are two types of problems that we can solve using a decision tree, just like all statistical method. First is the classification, and second is the regression problem. So what's the difference? So in classification problem, we actually classify two conditions, conditions by category. So we have category A, category B, or maybe category C. But in decision tree, we focus on the concept of something like this. So we have actually one condition which splits itself into two. So what if we have three different categories? So we basically split it again. For example, we split into two. Then we split our tree back into two other conditions. yes and no, basically. So that's what we do. It's called a one versus all technique because of the limitation of decision tree, in a sense. But then when we're talking about RM, what we do now is the conventional method. We have the intuition to raise or drop the price, and that's what is called as a classification problem based on the certain conditions. And yeah, as the screen share by Mr. Jing, we can see that the conditions such as, for example, is a person fit or not? We can, work to do, right?
Yeah.
Are there any work to do? If the answer is yes, it will lead to a decision, and if the answer is no, it will lead into another decision. So essentially, what we're doing now in RM is basically a decision tree, which is done manually, right? So in programming, we try to quantify this data based on existing data, and to do this programmatically. Because why do we have to do this? Why do we have to structure this? Because a lot of times our decision is not constant, right? Our decision is influenced by, for example, mood or fear. There are emotions that plays along in this kind of decision. Take an example. The easiest example I think is like the closest one I can think of. It's like a stock market. If you play a stock market, sometimes you have to like discard all these emotions and go back to the data, right? I think that's one of the problems that I encounter in RM, where sometimes when I try to do things programmatically and based on the data, it kind of works, but then sometimes owners who do not see this kind of stuff quantitatively tries to challenge the idea. But of course, if we have the data and we can show it to them, and if they understand, they will kind of understand that the probability works this way. So in a decision tree, basically, we have conditions, but then we have to kind of like rank our conditions. For example, I have a question for you all. If I have do you know a sieve? Do you guys know a sieve? Like a filter, basically, filter. I have a filter which has bigger holes and have a filter with smaller holes. If I want to classify particles, basically, I want to classify sands. Which one do I filter it from first? Do I use the bigger filter or do I use the small filter? Oh, they're freezing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You go first.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Are they freezing? The bigger one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's an interesting answer because why do you think we should use a bigger filter?
I think that's just like a step by step basically. We try to filter the bigger particle first until going all the way to the small one. Now, I
Right.
think because if we just use the smallest one at first, it's just gonna clog up everything in the end.
All right. That's actually an interesting
Sorry,
answer. Yes.
sorry guys. I think you need also contacting. Yes, he is free. They're
Yeah, I
free.
can hear you guys. I can hear you guys.
Oh,
Still good.
okay.
Yeah, we're good here.
Okay. So yeah, we're discussing on which filter to use first, the bigger one or the smaller one. So Alvin's answer is to use the bigger filter because then you can classify the conditions to more categories, right? Basically. Does Cynthia has a different answer?
No, 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 no.
No. Okay. So that's a very good way to think when we're trying to categorize different conditions. But this is very interesting because in decision tree, actually we kind of use the filter that can separate the category in more definitively. So for example, if I have different conditions, for example, I want to categorize people to have heart conditions or not, then maybe the symptoms are shortness of breath, for example. And another symptom is also, for example, the length, the duration in which an individual can run, for example. Which is more definitive? Is condition A more definitive, or the second condition is more definitive? Well, maybe we're not doctors, so we don't really know the answer. But in decision tree, we want the condition that can separate this correctly as much as possible to go first. And this can be quantified by using what is called a Gini score. It's a GINI score. It basically measures the probability of the purity of a decision. If a condition isn't able to classify particular diagnosis to its exact values, it is considered as impure, because you will have a lot of conditions afterwards that will have to be processed. And we as RM, along the way, I learned that Mr. Jing always said, "Oh, we want to keep this simple." For example, we want to try to keep things simple, and that's the essence of decision tree, because we want our tree to have as very few conditions as possible. The more height a decision tree has, it becomes more questionable, basically, because it's difficult to keep track of the conditions. So in a sense, it's Alvin's answer makes sense to a certain degree, that using a smaller sieve, we can actually create more categories, we can create more conditions. But then if in decision tree, we have to remember that we only have two answers, yes or no. We want to definitively classify this condition. Maybe let's think about RM. If we settled that, for example, if we have a booking window of let's say 1 or 2. No, let's consider just one variable first to make things clear. If the unoccupied nights maybe is above 5, or the nights that we do not have any booking yet is more than 5, is it a greater risk or lower risk?
It's a high risk.
High risk, yes. So we want to be able to classify those kind of stuff determinately. So we have to consider that our model should be quite general and take the average of all the properties we have. So by quantifying this kind of stuff and putting in a decision tree, we're able to definitively say that, oh, this is yes and this is no. But then, for example, if we have another exception, for example, some properties have higher booking window, some property has lower booking window. We can add more decisions there. But the point is, as a root node, we want our decision tree to be able to classify things better than the levels below it.
Perfect.
Because we want to keep things simple. Yeah, sure.
Vidi, I have a question that actually gets to, like, let's say an RM patrol. What do you think should be the root node of an RM patrol? Like, what would be that first decision we make to determine, should we change the price or should we not? Like, what's the most glaring, dividing, lowest Gini decision?
Okay, so the computer science answer to it might be we have to calculate it based on data. Right?
Okay, got it.
That's because the thing about the good thing about decision tree is that it's easily understood because of the conditions. But then in creating a model of the decision tree, we actually kind of like generalize a lot of things. So yeah, and we can try to calculate by trial and error the Gini score of each condition to be able to rank whether the condition should be put on higher priority or lower priority. For example, yeah, just like Serging mentioned, if we kind of like intuitively detect a risk, do we see the booking piece first, or do we see the occupancy first? Just like that, for example, because in my opinion, it's two different things. Because the occupancy, some booking, there might be lower booking pace, but maybe one booking can occupy more rooms, for example. So these are two different things, and by using data, we might actually find out whether we have to prioritize observing which category or which conditions first. So the computer science answer is we have to calculate based on data. But then again, yes, sir.
Vidi, I'll let you continue, but what type of data would you want to look at in this particular case? Is it the data of, let's say, the decision versus the result, or is it something that is related to the bookings, or what specific data would you look at to make
Okay.
that call?
So what I'm doing now, even in neural network, the intuition is to find things that actually works. Again, because it's subjective, I don't know which data project which one works or not. But then, for example, if I want to find something that actually works, I have to take note of the previous history where we actually changed the data. I also discussed this with Lilis. Like I discussed this with Lilis. Lilis proposed a novel method of risk detection, and I asked whether we have experimented on this method, and she asked me like, what kind of data are we looking for? So first, I think we can see from the points where a decision is made, right? We want to know when a decision is made. Maybe at a date like 2nd of February, 5th of February, then 15th of February. We want to see the decision, whether they raise the price or drop the price.
Yeah.
Then we observe whether the decision actually results to a positive feedback or negative feedback.
Ah, right. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Uh-huh.
So that's how I think we can actually collect this kind of data. Is first finding the exact instance where a decision is made, and observe and collect the data of the feedback.
Okay.
And then if the feedback after that, we can, from that instance, we have the data of the booking window distribution, the booking page at that particular point. We have all this data. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, for me, it does.
And and from that from there we can label it whether it works or it doesn't work.
Got
But
it.
then we have a decision. Because when we make a decision, there are conditions, right? And it's recorded. We have a history. Because it already passed, we can observe whether it's positive or negative feedback.
I got it.
As
Okay.
simple as that, basically. I think that's the part where we don't have the data yet and we have to process it again.
Yeah.
But then I think it makes sense for me, at least. Like if the decision is made, for example, in February 2nd, and then the outcome of the decision is good, then we track back. What are the conditions on the before the decision is made?
Right.
Is it like negative gradient, positive gradient? What are the conditions? Does it have a good booking pace, slow booking pace? And what are the implications of the decision? Is it good or bad?
Right.
So that's the thing that I think we haven't done in RM.
Correct.
That kind of data.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point, Vidi. And I want to ask. Okay, let's get Tenny back into the game, right? Tenny, where would we go to actually find the history of decisions that we've made in RM? In the partner relationship. Yeah. So somewhere in the partner relationship journal, we've recorded all the price changes that we've made, right? But it's a very manual process, and ideally, it should be in Toki. But I don't think that
Yes.
Toki records each change in price, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know anything?
It depends on whether we delete the rates. We have rates for each property, I noticed, and I don't know if before I came, we delete the rates or not.
I think we did.
Yeah, that's the problem. And another option is also to look at the toolkit calendar, because the prices are maintained there, right?
Okay.
So we have the calendar and the rates in the rate section, and we can see whether if there are the change of price, then we know that the price has been changed and it's recorded.
Okay.
Whether we delete it or not. But then again, that's why I'm creating a API, Python wrapper API. I have to figure out. That's why I'm collecting the data. Basically,
Okay.
I told you I'm collecting the data.
Got it. So now we can record each pricing decision, and it will record automatically. Okay.
Yes, whether it works or not, and I compare it to the booking, the booked, whether it's booked or not, basically. Because
wow. Okay. Continue. Yeah.
so yeah, that's the gist of decision tree. Basically, we most of the things that decision tree does is trial and error by calculating the Gini score, whether the condition can actually classify the data, definitively classify the data by the rules of probability and weighted probability. But I guess the simplest thing I can say about decision tree is that in RM process right now, we're actually doing a decision tree. But it's just that we're doing it manually because we see booking pace, what should we do? Yes or no. It always boils down to two answers, yes or no. Even though it seems like we have a lot of categories, it can actually always be deconstructed into two decisions, yes or no. Even if we have 3, 4 decisions.
Okay. All right.
That's the essence of decision tree.
Hey, Vidi, I thought of a great way we could really sink this in. Let's go around and see if how much of this went into everyone's mind. Alvin, what was your big takeaway from what Vidi has just said?
Basically, even if we are to try to automate everything, we kind of lack of the data, especially for the timeline. So what Vidi looking for is basically is every decision that we make previously that actually is still using manually, did it actually really have an impact or not, or actually what is actually the change on it.
And if we could actually evaluate revenue management performance in a more direct way. We could see, okay, all right, like what was the performance before? What were your decisions, and did that actually fix anything? Great. All right, let's go to Cynthia. Cynthia, what was your takeaway from what Vidi just said?
Okay, from the explanation about the decision tree itself, I think we have have a topic about the decision tree before, but I think it will be a good method to be done. And then also from the data itself, yes, because several days ago, I think I have some discussion with Vidi. There's a bug on our data in Tableau. So I think yeah. So I think before we work based on data, we should fix the data that we have first.
Okay, good. Vidi, just quick call. Does it over-report revenue, the bug?
I don't think so, but it's more like the count. When we try to count values, I think you used to do that when you're trying to find the booking window distribution. You actually drag it down, right?
Yeah.
And then you hover over the graph and then count.
Right. And it's getting the count. Yeah.
The count value is wrong.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, like I'll show you right now. So if this says 105, right? So if I highlight this right now. No, wait, this one's okay. This one does say 105.
No, if you do it more than two.
Okay.
All
right, let's do 2 then. So 105 plus 91 is?
Yes.
196. Okay, let's give that a shot. See what we get. Oops, I'm dragging a little bit. So we should get 196, but instead we get 197 because it counted these 2 little bars, right?
Yes.
It counted the okay. All right. Yeah, that's what we saw it with. Okay, good observation. We've seen that too as well. Tendi, why did I ask if the bug was about over-reporting revenue?
Yeah, because maybe the sum of the booking is not recorded.
That would be under-reporting revenue. That would be okay. Right? Over-reporting revenue is always bad for a company. It means you thought you made 300,000, you actually made $30, right? And you would spend and you would budget as if you made 300,000, whereas in fact you made much less. So that would actually bankrupt the company if we don't get control over that, right? The opposite is a little bit better. The opposite is like, oh, I actually made $3 million, and I only thought I made 30,000, right? And that would actually be kind of, oh wow, that would be like a nice day. The one effect is trivial, I guess. The other effect could be disastrous. So just wanted to double check. Yeah. All right, let's do this. Thank you, Vidi. Let's really cement this down. Let's go through a decision tree process was just a regular revenue patrol. All right. So let's say a patrol into a decision tree. So let's take this one for example. All right, Alvin, this is a familiar property. This is lot 3. You know it. I know it. I think everyone knows it, right? It's a beachfront property. So let's make a decision tree. I will move this tab over here, and we are going to make some decisions. Okay, so this is a mock decision tree. Okay, I guess this is the node, and this is the decision. If I can make it this way. All right. So the root node is the very first decision, right? The very first decision we have to decide, and we're going to have to make a sort of a call on this one. All right. Okay. So the very first decision is, I guess, should we discount any, or should we discount any? Should we discount? Right. Okay. Oh, this is tough. All right. let's see what we do. Let's go to Tendi. Tendi, do you think that this condition requires a discount right here? So we're on the 25th right now, and starting on the 29th, the villa is empty.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's say Tendi believes it's yes. Okay, and then let's ask. Let's go to Alvin. Why? Alvin, why would you believe that this is necessary to give a discount?
First of all, may I ask question?
Yes, sir.
So the first decision is we want to keep or change the price.
Yes, keep or change the price. So I guess
Uh,
a no
I
would
think
be.
I have to object right there.
Yes, okay, Vidi, step up. Tell me what
Because
we should do.
I think Alvin's right. I think the decision should be on the leaf note,
Oh,
the
okay.
nose part. But
Alright.
we have to ask what conditions are there. For example, what's the runaway, or how long? What's the booking window? What's the runaway, and so on and so forth. And then we can classify. And the final leaf would be: should we change it or not?
Okay, good.
Raise or not?
Let's do. Oh, Vidi, could you take over on this side? Yeah, I'll let you run the demo. Here, I'll invite you to the document, and you're Vidi.Bukit Vista, right? I think that's it. If not, I will happily delegate this to Vidi. Okay, all right. So here you go. Or if you will, if you like. So tell us how, because the reason I'm delegating is this also. I'm not sure what I'm doing. this is kind of LC moment, right? I really don't know how to build a decision tree using a table like this. In fact, I'm usually used to building a decision tree using like paper and whatnot. But let's see if we can do it. Vidi, first question I'd have is it even possible to build a decision tree from a table like this?
Actually, I think the thing is, building a decision tree is usually based on past data.
Oh,
You
right.
understand? We develop a model, we fit it from past data, and then if we have a new data that we want to ask, then it will go through the decision tree, not building the decision tree based on things that we don't have, basically have.
Correct. I agree.
But we can kind of like simulate. Let's say we have a model that asks first,
Good point.
what's the booking window, for example.
Okay, so the screen is yours. So you may go ahead and write onto this document. I've left it in the chat. Oh yeah, I think you're right. Dead air. Vidi, do you have access to this document? The
I'll have to check because I don't have.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay.
Possibly. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got access.
So let's say we're going to build a model for this particular scenario. We're going to build a model for short runway, long booking window model. So let's.
Sorry. Do we want to have? Do we want to build a model, or do we already have a model? Because building a model, as I've said, is based on past data.
All right. Let's say we have a model already. Let's say we're going.
Yeah. Basically, we have. Let's say we have a model, right?
We're going to react a certain way when we see this condition occurring, which was maybe we can express it as a ratio, right? The ratio is if the runway divided by the median booking window is below 50, right? Below 50%, 0.5. Then we need to take a certain action on it.
Let's say we figure out different variables. For example, the usual one we have it. I think just now the risk, right?
Yes.
Unsold nights, short runaway, too much availability. Let's take three, for example, just three variables.
Okay.
Say booking pace variables. We have booking pace, for example. So the second one we have what do I want here? The gap nights.
Okay.
And let's say, or what do you call it? The runway, the time, the time before the next unbooked date.
Yes.
Right, runaway, right? And then, for example, we already built a model that let's consider the node 1, 2, 3 to represent the variables that we consider. And from the model, we find out that first we should consider the runaway first, because in general, if the unbooked night is closer, we will most likely reduce the price. Let's say.
Okay.
If in general it will be like that. Then we see. Oh, sorry. I think an important note is also the booking window distribution.
Yes.
Right. And then let's say after looking at the runaway, for example, 0.60% of the bookings will require drop of price, most likely. Let's say.
Okay.
But then 40% of the bookings will just stay the same. We will have a maintained price at that point. Then after going through that node, we will observe the booking window distribution, for example.
Okay.
And then we will go through the nodes for gap night. And then finally, we will have a booking pace. Does it make sense? But this is just, let's say we have a model. Let's say we have this kind of one.
How would that look like graphically, Vidi? Like it just goes, okay, we first look at, let's say, the runway. And it's like a no on each side, right? If the runway is sufficient, then we do not change the price. And then we look at the booking window distribution. If the runway, after we say change the price, if the booking window distribution is small, right?
Yes.
Then we say no. Okay. So it would just look like a tree that goes down this way. No, 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 and then finally again, right?
Not really, because if there is a no, for example, then we would like to, let's say, classify it more.
Okay, got it.
Right, because sometimes if for example, if we have a short runaway, right? Okay, let's say we have a short runaway, and then for example, we classify it as no because the runaway is still in a very long time. We have a long runway, so we said no. So from that no, we will try to consider we classify it more using other variables and see whether other variables can classify it better than just the no from the runaway.
Okay.
So that's why we need the Gini score or the error.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it.
Yes.
So let me just.
So yeah.
Here's something, Vidi. What I'm going to try is I'm going to try to build that decision tree based on what you put in the table, right? And you're going to tell me if I'm understanding it correctly or if I'm smoking crack. Okay. So which could be a very realistic case. Actually, I smoke crack every day. Okay, so that was a joke, guys. I never smoked crack. Okay, so let's see if we understand this correctly. The first node is something here, second node, third node, fourth node, right? So let's say the first node is something of the order of, okay, let me reduce the size of this text. It's humongous. It's like gigantic text. Would it be like, is the runway less than, oh God, wait, let me shrink the text, please. That text is ridiculous sized. Okay. Would that be a way of quantifying a decision on the first node? Let's say, is the runway less than 3 nights? Okay, great. So then we have, let's say, yes. Oops, God damn it. Okay, let's say we have a yes branch, and then that leads us to a second decision, which then is the number 4, which is okay. Say is the, let's say, booking window distribution median, I don't know, 5 nights maybe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if we know that, okay, that's the case, then continue on to the next decision. Okay, so I will use red to indicate positive decisions. Actually, positive decisions are usually green, right? Okay, I'll change the color. Okay, fine. Okay, I'll use green arrows to indicate positive decisions, and I'll use red arrows to indicate negative decisions. Okay, and we have that. Okay, so let's say we see that we have a runway of less than 3 nights. Is the median window 5? Let's say more than 5 nights. Yeah, there you go. More than 5 nights, right? Okay, and then we go to the third decision, which is then gap nights. Let's go over here. Oh, God damn it. Okay, now it's all like color hell. All right, so then maybe we can ask, are the gap nights greater than 5 nights? Okay, and then another positive decision would lead us to the final decision. Oh, God, come on. There must be a better tool to make decision trees, yeah? If anybody finds it, I'll be eternally grateful for you. Okay, all right. And then the last decision is booking pace. Maybe, okay, is the booking pace above 2 a week, right? Okay, all right. So let's examine this and apply it to lot 3, right? So is actually, all right, is the runway less than 3 nights? No, the runway is 1, 2, 3. Actually, it is. It's about 3 nights right now, right? So the runway is 3 nights, less than 3. Okay, let's say, here, I'll change this to 5, right? Make it easier for the example to work. If the runway is less than 5 nights, okay, so we continue doing something. So is the booking window median more than 5 nights? Yeah, because lot 3 generally has more advanced bookings. Okay, yeah. So we proceed. Are the gap nights greater than 5 nights? Yeah, it's like 10. And then is the booking pace above 2 a week? So then let's take a look at the booking pace for lot 3. Sorry, this is the cancellation record. I know it's weird, but let's just see if this has happened. Oh, a lot of cancellations or a lot of booking pace. Okay. All right, give me a second here. I'm excited. I'm like applying my first like decision tree making process. I'm getting okay. All right, is the booking pace above 2 a week? Yes. So I guess we can say at this point, let's say do nothing, right? Sorry. People are like, what are you saying sorry for? Okay. Crap. Bastard. Okay, move. Yes. Or keep price. All right. Vidi, would this be what we would be talking about? Would this be the visualization of it, or You look like you want to correct something, of course. Okay. So,
Yeah. So I think how do I say it? This looks like an if-else condition,
right.
right?
Yes.
In decision tree, it's more like I'm trying to draw something. Okay, let's say we have something like this.
Oh wait, I'm
It's,
trying to read that. Okay, I'm going to maximize that.
it's flipped, right?
Oh, okay. Probability. Okay. Got it.
Yes. For example, if even the value of 3 itself just now
Uh-huh.
is like, for example, if is there only less than 5 nights, 4 nights, 3 nights, we have to calculate each of the Gini score whether it has a price.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the result of yes and no is not one definite answer because you have to consider the labels.
Right.
You have to find a target. Is to increase the price or the decrease the price, or good performance or bad performance, let's say.
Okay.
And then from that condition, we can apply more conditions. Basically, the output of a decision tree is the probability of the final, let's say the final node. As we can see here, the final node is like the probability of that particular thing being in a particular group after going through all the decision process.
Okay. I'm gonna screenshot that. Hey, hold on a second. Just leave that there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'll probably need to go back and study that. Okay, if one over 3, yes. And then up the price 100, lower the price 20. You're gonna have to explain that to me a little bit. Yeah. I know we're almost out of time. Actually, we're all out of time. But let me share my screen from this side and tell me what this means. Yeah. So give me a second. You got some interesting music over there, Vidi.
Yeah, it's from the mosque.
Oh, I thought. Okay, all right. So I've blown up the chart that Vidi was showing before, and Vidi, maybe you can tell us what that means.
Okay, so if we have a condition of is there a runaway more than 3 days,
Yeah.
and we say yes, then the answer is not increase the price or decrease the price. It's if it's so, it's an if else process, and it's not really like a machine learning process, I guess.
Okay.
But the answer is more like this. Oh, if we have a runaway greater than 3 days, then the probability of you increasing the price should be 100 over 120,
Okay.
which is 10 over 12.
Okay.
While the probability of you decreasing the price is 2 over 12. So more likely, you have to increase the price as opposed to decrease the price. So it's always a matter of probability.
Okay. Got
A
it.
definite answer of yes or no. But if we want to apply yes and a yes or no answer, we can apply sigmoid. For example, if the probability is greater than 0.5, then yes. If the probability is lower than 0.5, then no.
Okay.
But basically, from these values, we can kind of like, we split our data. For example, 100 and 200 becomes 120, and another no becomes 40 and 60.
Okay.
So in total, we have 100 and 220 data.
Okay.
And we split it into 120 and 40 and 60.
Okay.
And then we want to, again, divide the answers from 120 to another decision-making process.
Ah, got it. Okay. That's the G.
If the gene impurity of the condition, the new condition, is lower, the impurity is lower because we want it to be pure, so it can definitively classify.
Okay. And
Yes.
G
So we want
is closer to 0. What is the mark of a lower Gini impurity? Is it closer to?
0, closer to 0. We want our answer to be closer to 0 because if it's 0, then it's pure. It is able to definitively classify the data set.
Oh, I got it. Okay. All right. That's interesting. All right. Interesting. Okay. All right. That is machine learning.
Yes, because if we have, we want to find an error with lowest error basically. If we have, this definitely, if is the runaway greater than 3, and all the answer in yes is increase the price, then the probability of yes is 1.
Right.
Therefore, 1 minus 0 is 0. The Gini impurity is 0.
Got it.
It's very pure.
Okay.
If the runaway is greater than 3, then you must increase the price.
Okay. All right.
That's the essence of machine learning, where we can kind of calculate the error and so on and so forth. Yeah.
All right. Okay. This has been fascinating. This was a bit challenging for me today. All right. Who else felt challenged by what we spoke about today? Raise your hand. I'll be the first to admit it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. So okay. Thank you very much, Vidi, for sharing this. This is I think actually kind of like the next level. So we are processing a lot of our decisions through like kind of a manual tree right now, and this was like the best I could do before, right? Which was, as Vidi said, it's like kind of an if-then statement. If this is happening, and then this is happening, and this is happening, then go ahead and take a discount. But I think the issue with that is that we'll never know the quality of those decisions and if it's balanced. So what Vidi's actually put forward is a way to actually decide if your decisions are any good by measuring the quality of the decisions that you're making. So this is actually pretty cool. This is like when HR chooses a person to go in the company, and then we're like, hey, that person didn't work out. So then HR needs to think of a better way to decide who joins the company, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like just an open-ended HR picks whoever wants into the company, and we'll just live with it. But we have to look back at the quality of those decisions based on the, I guess in HR's case, it would be the balance of employee success here. Okay, we've run out of time today, and wow, I feel like woof, like mind blown a little bit. So thank you very much for co-hosting today with me, Vidi, on this really new insight. This has been very new territory, I think, for most of us here. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow for Revenue Management Patrol. Or does anybody else want to host? Actually, the next Revenue Management. Cynthia, you're smiling because you want to host, right? Because it's so awesome.
Well, I don't have anything to be hosted.
Okay. All right. Alvin, what about you? Do you want to host a revenue management discussion tomorrow?
I'll pass for now.
All right. So, okay. Thank you guys very much for participating today. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
see you.
See y'all. Thank you, Vidi. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Cynthia.
Bye.
Thank you, Vidi.
Thank you, sir.
All right.